So this week, we're at part 3 on both of our series, and we're continuing working through conjugal love. What I've been trying to do is, for the most part, read some of the accounts of what Swedenborg encounters in the next life as he learns about this. So we will do that, but just give a little primer to it. Last week I threw this slide up here just to give us a reminder of what chaste means, because chaste is not a word we normally use in everyday language. And there's the two ones that really stick out, right? It's unlawful sexual intercourse, basically saying sex outside of marriage, right? So if you are chaste, you only have sex inside of marriage. If you're unchaste, it's sex outside of marriage. It also goes nicely with this number 3 here, pure in thought and act. So keeping your mind clean of lustful thoughts. So if you're chaste, you're pure in your thoughts, but you're also pure in your actions as well. So a useful reminder as to what that means as we stay in this book, because it's an often used word. This chapter that we're dealing with, it's interesting in that it's titled True Married Love, or Truly Conjugal Love, depending on your translation. And a lot of times when you read these chapters, it's pages and pages and pages of philosophical discussion. And then at the end he puts an account saying, okay, and this is what I saw that relates to that. This chapter is the opposite. It's a page or two of talk about the important topic, right? True married love. This is the one, right? This is what this book is all about. There's actually very little written about it, but there's heaps of narrative accounts of saying, this is what I experienced. And what he does at the end, he says, look, there's marriage love throughout the different ages, the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, like 6 different ages. And so each one of these accounts that he gives at the end is one of those ages. We're not going to read all of those, but we will read the golden age one. And as a primer for that, this is kind of the outline of the chapter of the content. He says, and if you prefer, I did put this in your order of service, particularly those of you who are online, or if you can't see the screen, it is in there for you and also for me. So it says, there is truly conjugal love, or married love, which today is so rare that people do not know what it is like, and scarcely that it exists. And that, I believe, is a good place to start, right? People don't know about this love. Really, they don't get it. This love originates from the marriage between good and truth. There is a correspondence between this love and the marriage of the Lord and the church. Regarded from its origin and correspondence, this love is celestial, spiritual, holy, pure and clean, more so than any other love which exists from the Lord and the angels of heaven or people of the church. It's also the fundamental love of all the celestial and spiritual loves, and consequently of natural loves. This is a big one, I think, because when we try to steer people towards a proper marriage love, we're steering them towards this essential, fundamental love of heaven. And therefore, when we see people deviating from this and trying to make things outside of the conjugal love allowable, we raise our hands and say, this is not a good idea. Why? Because conjugal love is the fundamental love. And when we think about it, you want to go to heaven. We don't believe in a system where God says, nope, sorry, nope. We believe that we do this to ourselves. And so if somebody breeds in themselves a love that's contrary to the fundamental love of heaven, what are they going to do to themselves? They're going to say, thanks, but I'll pass on the whole heaven thing. I want to go somewhere where this isn't the fundamental love. And that's not a good place. It's not a good place. And that's why this is so important to religion in general, because this is a fundamental love. It's really important to get this right. Moreover, into this love has been gathered all the joys and all delights, from the first to the last of them. But no others come into this love, and no others can be in it, but those who go to the Lord and love the truths of the church and do the good things that it teaches. This love was the greatest love among the ancients who lived in the gold and silver and copper ages, but after it, it gradually disappeared. So, part of the point of this is to remind ourselves that this love exists. I've said to Zach several times over the course of his life, hey, who you choose to marry is the most important decision you will ever make. Don't mess it up. No pressure. It's the number one most important decision you'll ever make. And this is why, it's the fundamental love. And it goes a long way. So, as in order to kind of set the bar as to, well, what can it be, I want to read at least most of the account of the Golden Age story, which is kind of fun. And I think it's important to have an idea of what we're shooting for. Easy to look around the world and think, oh, well, I see this and I see that, and that's good enough. Oh, they seem to be okay. And yeah, there's some of that you can do, but hold this as an ideal. So Swedenborg's in the other life, and he wants to see this, and an angel guide comes up to him. And the angel says, I have been sent by the Lord to be your guide and companion. First, I will guide and accompany you to the people who lived in the first age or period, which is called golden. He also added, the way to them is difficult. It lies through a dark forest which no one can pass through without being given a guide by the Lord. I was in the Spirit, and so I readied myself for the journey, and we turned our faces to the east. And as I went, I saw a mountain whose height extended beyond the level of the clouds. We crossed a great desert, and we came to a forest thick with trees of various kinds and dark on account of their density, as the angel had predicted. So just tie this into today's recitation, right? There's a narrow way and a broad way, This is a narrow way, right? However, the forest was intersected by many narrow paths, but the angel said they were all winding ways leading astray, and that unless a traveler's eyes were opened by the Lord to see the olive trees covered with leafy vines, and to make his way from the olive tree to olive tree, he would wander off into infernal regions which surrounded the forest on each side. Interesting picture, right? The path to the highest angel's heaven is littered with these off-ramps. If you don't follow the olive trees, well, what are olive trees about? Well, they're about love. So unless you bounce from these olive trees, you go off into infernal paths. This is what the forest is like. In order to guard the approach, for none but the earliest people dwell on that mountain. After we entered the forest, our eyes were opened, and here and there we saw olive trees entwined with vines, which had bunches of purplish blue grapes hanging from them. Moreover, the olive trees were arranged in a continuous series of circles. Consequently, we went around and around as each one came into view, until finally we saw a grove of tall cedars with some eagles on their branches. Seeing them, the angel said, we are now on the mountain, not far from the summit. We went on, and beyond the grove there was a circular field, where male and female lambs were grazing, which were forms representative of the state of innocence and peace of the people who dwelt on the mountain. We crossed this field, and suddenly tents appeared, tent after tent after tent, reaching many thousands in number, in front and on each side as far as the eye could see. And the angel said, we are now in an encampment. Behold the army of the Lord Jehovah. That is what they call themselves in their dwellings. When these most ancient people lived in the world, they dwelled in tents. Therefore, they also live in tents now. But let us turn our way southward, where the wiser ones among them are, to find someone to talk with. As we went, I saw in the distance 3 boys and 3 girls sitting at the entrance of one of the tents. But when they drew near, they looked like men and women of average height. And the angel said, "All the inhabitants of this mountain appear at a distance like little children, because they are in a state of innocence, and early childhood is the way innocence appears." Seeing us, the men hurried over to us and said, "Where are you from? And how did you get here? Your faces are different from the faces of our mountain." But the angel answered and told them how we were able to pass through the forest and for the reason of our coming. Hearing this, one of the 3 men invited us into his tent and led us inside. The man was dressed in a blue-colored robe and a tunic of very white wool, and his wife was dressed in a purple dress with a blouse underneath of embroidered fine linen. Then, because I had in my thought the desire to learn about the marriages of the most ancient people, I looked by turns at the husband and the wife, and I observed a seeming unity of their souls in their faces. So I said, "You two are one." The man replied, "We are. Her life is in me, and my life is in her. We have 2 bodies, but one soul. The union between us is like the union of 2 tabernacles in the breast, which are called heart and the lungs. She is my heart. I am her lungs. But since we say heart, here we mean love, and when we say lungs, we mean wisdom. Therefore, she is the love of my wisdom, and I am the wisdom of her love. Therefore, her love outwardly clothes my wisdom, and my wisdom is inwardly within her love. Consequently, as you have said, the unity of our souls appears in our faces." Then I asked, "If such is the union between you, are you able to look upon any other woman than your own?" He replied, "I can, but because my wife is united to my soul, the 2 of us look together, and then not a trace of lust can enter. For when I look at other men's wives, I look at them through the eyes of my wife, who is the only one I am in love with. And because she, as my wife, can perceive all my inclinations, she acts as an intermediary and directs my thoughts, taking away anything discordant and at the same time inspiring a coldness and horror towards anything unchaste. As a result, it is impossible for us here to regard any of our companions' wives with lust, as impossible as it would be to look at the light of our heaven from a state of infernal darkness. We have no mental concept among us, therefore, and not even any word in our speech for the temptations of libidinous love." He could not say licentious love, because of the chastity of their heaven resisted it. After this, the man who was with us hurried back to his tent and returned with a pomegranate containing a number of seeds made of gold. He gave it to me, and I took it away with me as a memento to me that we had been with the people who had lived in the golden age. So then, after saying farewell, we departed and returned home. I find it kind of amusing that here is this golden age angel saying, "Oh, we two are one, we're united," and all this. And what's the first thing Swedenborg says? How do you not look at other women with lust? Clearly a male point of view on that question. That's the first thing that comes to mind. How is it you see all these beautiful women and you're not thinking dirty thoughts about them? Oh, no, let me tell you how we do it. We look at these women through our wives' eyes. I feel like Conjugial Love, the book, is often addressing very practical stuff, right? Because this is something that people struggle with. You see something beautiful, sometimes you think things that you shouldn't be thinking, unchaste thoughts. How do you deal with this? Well, it sounds so simple, right? Look at it through the eyes of my wife. And can you do that? Can you do that here? I think you can. It just means that when these thoughts come up, you say to yourself, oh, okay, she's pretty, but you know what? I'm not going to go down this path thinking about this girl. I'm going to think of this girl from how my wife would see her, or vice versa, right? I'm thinking about this guy, how my husband would see him. stuff like that. So it just, it sets the bar, right? This is, the two are united as one. She's my heart, I am her lungs, I see things through her, she sees things through me. This is how it's supposed to be. Growing up around all these teachings and then getting married and being in Bernathen as a young married couple, people complained because the church would give them these high ideals of what marriage could be like, and people weren't feeling like they were experiencing it at age 26. No kidding, right? This takes time to develop. It takes time to develop. You're not going to have this right off the bat. But one of the things that I do take with me that, I'm trying to remember who the minister was that put this out. Maybe it's Prescott Rogers, but the idea is that the excitement and the enthusiasm we have for our love when we first get married, this is the Lord giving us a taste of what that state's like. It's a taste saying, okay, you got that now, remember it, hold on to that that's like, and if you work, you can get back to it and be like those angels in the golden age. It might take you some time. You won't be there at 26 or 28, maybe not even 30, but hang in there, you'll get there eventually. Amen.